told us that we were basically going to be one step from living in Mad Max.
Mm.
And they go, when the millennial comes, all the computers are going to shut down. Yeah.
Oh, the Y2K.
Yep. Because I actually have a keychain that still has the Y2K button. And it was supposed to be supposed to shut down all the computers and put us all back to the Stone Age. So, like, our whole time we were in school, they kept just telling us that the world was going to end. We're all going to have nuclear war. All the computers are going to shut down.
What a shame we never got that. Mad Max would be so fun.
Everything's going to be horrible. Basically, we're all going to be fighting over the last cans of tuna and gasoline. And then none of that happened. So then we're just standing around like, what was we preparing for then?
Yeah. I feel like with the millennials, it was really like...
Oh, they gave y'all a hope for a new future.
What I find interesting is how this sort of like skipped generations, because you had Gen X who got the full doomer treatment, but then you had the millennials where things are more hopeful, going into the 90s, Clinton era, everything's good. Yeah. Our first black president is in office, and everyone's kind of, things are going well because, they're slashing regulation, the Soviet Union falls. And so the millennials, and then of course there's all the promises from the universities and other institutions saying how the world is only getting better and things will only get better from here, and you are now guaranteed the white picket fence, or at the very least a nice brownstone in the city, something like that. Maybe that's the more millennial version.
They gave y'all like hope and glitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all kind of came back for the millennials. Then you go past them to Gen Z. Then you got the kids who grew up with the 2008 recession, and many of whom were like in college or late high school when COVID hit, lived through multiple, big issues. The Iraq War happening early on in their lives, multiple wars, the pullout of Afghanistan, all kinds of shit. Just fuck up upon fuck up upon fuck up upon fuck up. Seeing the polarization of Trump's first attempt at a run, and only seeing that get worse. And that's before you go into the woke stuff too. It's never noted enough. I try to have this conversation every time someone pushes back at me and says, Rich, you say woke too much. I'm like, well, it was a very specific time period, Yeah. That only just ended. You have to remember that for the next generation of kids, they didn't grow up seeing... some of them saw gay marriage get legalized as an early memory, and then they go in and they're told for the rest of their lives how there's this continuing battle for rights, and it was like, I started my life seeing gay rights be legitimized. This was normal. This is a generation that didn't grow up with, like, watching the Stonewall riots. They grew up watching... men in the women's locker room, like they grew up watching, women, trans women compete in the Olympics and having it be, and with the mindset of, yeah, I want to support them, but also, I don't know, is this fair? They grew up with a certain skepticism. That's why I always try to repeat, the woke culture being mom culture thing. Well, this generation's new perspective is very, very different on that. On the on U.S. economics, on a lot of things. And then Gen Alpha, who even knows what the fuck that wild card's going to be? Who knows how much the internet has twisted their brains? Who knows?
Well, you got to remember, Gen Alpha is basically the kids of Gen Z. Gen X. And Gen X, of course, that's my group.
No, they're the kids of the millennials.
We were all doomer.
No, Gen Z were the kids of Gen X. My mom was Gen X, and I was late. I was like early... I was right on the cusp between millennial and Gen Z. My mom was Gen X, but she was like early Gen X. She was also in the cusp. What's up, Taylor? Welcome in. Oh yeah, we're talking generations right now.
But when I grew up in the 80s,
I'm here listening in, by the way.
Didn't care if you was actually gay or not. If you was a grown up and you was gay, nobody cared. In the 80s, nobody cared. You had Boy George out there on stage singing.
That's right. Yeah.
We didn't care.
There certainly is something to be said for, as much as it's as much as you want to be like it's important we legitimize. It's important the LGBT community have their rights. It's also like the more that you like make demands and the more that you like constantly be like, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. We need more paper, we need more law. The more you consistently do that, there's an argument that you kill its own legitimacy as you start to look petty at a certain point.
Well,
you know, as people, because people don't go around being like, you know, like, it's like you said, like there was like gay culture has always been a thing in American culture to some degree, at least as long as the television. You know, when was Liberace on TV actually, entertaining the households of America?
That it was. Well, it was that way before that because in certain areas they had special terms for it, and it's like okay, if you were in like the 1920s and 30s and 40s all the way up to the 50s and 60s. You said you had swag, and it was kind of meant that you was a gay guy.
Mm.
So that wasn't really a problem. So I mean, people knew this. I mean, but back then you could get beat up or killed for it.
If you wait, Taylor, if you were
cared.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but in the 80s, nobody actually cared. They're like, oh, this.
The 80s were gay as fuck. Everyone seems to remember to forget the 80s were gay as fuck.
It's like, yeah, dude, like one of the guys reminds me of, like, what band was it? I don't know if it was from White Snake or one of the other ones. Anyway, the dude seen himself, like their band on the cover. He's like, hey, they got some hot women on this cover. And then the guy's like, oh, that's me. Because they were wearing so much hairspray, in spandex, that he thought they were women to start off with, which was kind of funny. Then he couldn't even recognize himself.
Yeah, so, I mean the saying that there have one of the sad things is, you know, as much as we pretend like we are going into some new era of a deeper understanding of gender, the truth is, you know, there's always been a flux in our ability as a culture to play with gender and gender ideology, and this is one of the more rigid times, as everything needs to be cleanly defined. But the 80s are a great example of when you had men experimenting with feminine traits or feminine aspects of themselves, you know, like, or getting the Jerry curls, Van Halen's hairstyle, you know, Prince, you know, playing with femininity as a man at one point, you know, is something that comes and goes culturally. And the same with women experimenting with masculinity comes and goes in the culture. But
back this in the 80s, there was so many dudes with makeup on and hairspray.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
oh yeah. I mean, literally, there was dudes wearing flower pots on their heads. I mean, seriously. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I like some Devo. It's all right. But the dudes are wearing flower pots on their heads.
Yeah.
They did call themselves the androgynous 80s at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy to me how, like, as much as there's this fucking lie that we're going into some era where we have some deeper exploration of gender, when in reality we are more rigid than ever, in large part due to the woke culture that calls itself some deeper understanding. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Oh.
Yeah, well, like I said, back in the 80s, if you was gay, nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
In school.
People still sing. I heard Frankie Say Relax play at a party just 2 days ago.
Okay, as long as you was a young boy in school who said he was gay, you were fine. If you were a grown man and you were gay, nobody cared. Mm-hmm. If you were a woman and you were gay, besides turning on probably a couple dudes, it was fine. Just being honest. I mean, that's how it was.
I mean, yeah, like I said, there's definitely something to be said for sometimes when you're a systemically oppressed group, whether that be a racial identity, ethnic identity, religious identity, sexual orientation, political leaning, whatever, there sometimes you need to just not rock the boat, and you know, because the unfortunate truth is that rights are often, in any society, the U.S. or otherwise, at any time, at any place, oftentimes for minorities, rights come and go. And you're often, when they start to go, when the wave that you thought would last forever inevitably crests and breaks, as they always do, it's better for people to like you. It's better for you to have a positive image in the zeitgeist What the fuck is happening in the YouTube chat right now? It's better for you to have a more positive image in the zeitgeist so people don't think that you're like a bunch of crazy perverts. You know, generally speaking. Just generally speaking. Okay, it's not showing those. Good. That's just on OBS. Yeah, it's good to not have people thinking that you're crazy. It's good to show, and especially good to show willingness to excommunicate problematic members. That's one of the biggest thing the current LGBT institutions really struggle with, is excommunicating problematic members who do actually make moves on children. There's plenty of those on TikTok who they refuse to distance themselves from. And it's going to bite them. It's already biting them in the ass, but it's going to get much, much worse. Especially as, and we were talking about this earlier, Kinji, I forget if you were here for it, as evangelical Christians are now becoming more of a presence on social media, even short form media and TikTok.
Yeah.
You know?
Please
go on.
They've been trying to chase the game like that for a long time. You remember back when they were trying to get into Christian rock, right? That was a thing. But
dude. I was down with the DC talk.
When they're trying to catch up, that it's awkward no matter what they do, right?
Mm-hmm. They always have that.
You remember how cringy Christian rock was?
Oh yeah,
at the time back in the.
Still is. What do you mean at the time? Still is. Christian rock has always been, where talent goes to die. It's always been a problem.
It's kind of dead now unless you're in the circle, but like in the mainstream, it's dead now. But when it was in the mainstream, it was. There
was like a couple year period. I think going off like the end of like the grunge era. I think there's a music creator I really like called Todd in the Shadows, and he talked about Christian music in one of his videos once. But he said that there was this interesting little blip where I think because like the 90s grunge era had a lot of imagery that kind of overlapped with like Christian imagery. A lot of imagery about like mud and pain and stuff like that. And, edgy boys with guitars, strumming in front of a camera. It worked out. It aligned with Christian rock values in that early 2000s, coming out of the grunge era. Things were a little less serious.
But
there was a blip, but it quickly faded. Quickly.
But just a short period before that, they were demonizing rock music.
Yep.
Rock music was the devil's music, right? And then they 180 turned it, trying to chase that game, and they're too late for the game.
You think that's going to happen here with them on social media? They're just going to... something else, something new is going to come along as soon as they get good at it?
Well, to me, they're like dogs chasing cars. Even if they catch it, they don't know what to do with it.
There's truth in that. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what I think, we've heard all this rock music was really good, so let's finally get over there and do that. But by the time they get there, it's already over with. So they're chasing a car they can't never catch. Now the internet's over here, and they're like, "Oh, let's stay away from the internet. It's full of bad things." Mm-hmm. And they're against it. And then all of a sudden, they're like, "Well, we should get over there and deal with it now." It's a little late now, man. You're kind of late to the party.
Yeah.
Case in point, you were trying to listen to Raps with Jesus.
Yeah. Good old Raps for Christ. A CD that definitely would not have existed in 1993, by the way. The Tupac era would never have tolerated that shit. Like, no. Biggie was still alive at that point. That shit would never have been tolerated. That would never have happened.
So Jesus is making, Latino food? Raps with Christ?
Oh, yeah. It's actually Pakistani. What, do they eat raps? Well, I don't know. Probably. No, I don't know. I mean, it could be interesting. I don't know. On the one hand, I'm like, this could change a lot of things on social media. But on the other hand, I'm kind of with you that it's like, if you're going to just get good at social media this late in the game, right before TikTok could still potentially get banned. It could still happen. I mean, imagine getting good at TikTok right before it gets banned. I don't know. Maybe, but then again, like, what's the new big thing that could suddenly sweep everything else away? There hasn't really been any big up-and-coming websites that have really... I don't know. People thought that Be Real was going to be that for a hot minute, and then obviously it didn't because, Snapchat's still doing well. They're owned by Facebook, though. Anything Facebook touches just dies. Zuckerberg just can't get a win to save his life, despite having to own everything. He just can't. God, he can't do anything right. I don't know.
Sounding like an old man right now. I have a hard time keeping up with trends.
That's probably for the best. That's probably for the best. There's not a lot of trends worth following. I don't know. I'm curious as to where. Oh, did you know that TikTok is now majority male? I didn't know that happened. It's now like 55 to 45%. I don't know. Maybe it's because Charlie Kirk's apparently got a big audience over there, which kind of surprised me. He's like, again, those evangelical Christians apparently are doing well on TikTok now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was so far outside the thing, I was basically in a vault. Man, TikTok's been going on. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah. There's a bunch of knockoffs now, too. I kind of want to make a video exploring those at some point. There's like a bunch of them. There's a bunch of like short form content, rolling feed kind of site, kind of apps now. Even Netflix is getting one. Netflix is getting a short form feed. They're getting one too now. That's going to be made up of clips from movies and TV shows on the site. That'll be desperate.
That's going to last probably a whole big 2 months before it shuts down.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely expensive. I mean, where are they going to... I mean, they do have a deep well of content, but it's like... I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, there's still a paid subscription that's getting more expensive by the day somehow. That's competing with social media that's free. I mean, YouTube. I mean, the biggest competitor to Netflix is not HBO, it's YouTube. I mean, how do you compete with it when it's free? It's Freevee, it's Tubi, which, by the way, Tubi apparently is actually turns a profit, unlike YouTube, which is crazy. I don't know. I mean, the content is ass, but that's also to be expected. I don't know. And, when it's profitable, who really cares? As long as people are watching. I don't know. It's strange. It's strange.
Oh, I was surprised that Netflix is still around anyway, because I remember when it first came out, that was like one of the worst services ever. Me and one of my buddies, I used to work on his car for him because he did some street racing stuff. Anyway, we used to stay down at the one, it's like a trailer park down there, and he used to do street racing, and he had Netflix when it first came out. Man, that was like the worst service ever. All you could do was just like order movies online, basically have them delivered to your house.
Yeah, back when it was still a DVD service, I remember that. Yeah.
Well, it was a like online movie service where you could watch them online, but the connection speed was so slow from their servers you could just never watch anything. It was like watching PowerPoint.
Wish the U.S. would invest more in fiber optic cable. God, we would have incredible internet by now, but we just haven't bothered to.
I know, here they are.
Yeah, I mean, in some areas, it depends. It depends on whether or not your local area is willing to actually stand up to Comcast, ultimately.
Not just that. Actually, Comcast is the one installing it.
Yeah, but there's crap, from what I hear. They're trying to use a lot of existing infrastructure to make it as cheap as possible so they can say it's fiber, but apparently a lot of it's crap. It's unfortunate.
Actually, they just went all the way from the nearest city that we got all the way. They're moving out to like the small towns with it, and they're putting like these little green boxes, which are basically little relay stations, like every so many feet. Oh my God, they have so many of these things. And they've been running ditch witches up and down the roads, like on the sides. Because but Comcast has been working hard out this way.
Comcast and hard work doesn't always mix. But I'm not. I mean, I guess if it's working, I certainly hope that I'm wrong, and Comcast is truly putting their best foot forward and trying to create the best, experience possible for their customers, create the best product. I hope so. They don't really have a reason to. That's always been Comcast's problem. They're a fucking monopoly. As many companies are monopolies in the United States and allowed to be, especially internet companies. But I hope I'm wrong. Well, I hope they're putting their best foot forward.
Well, I think here they're doing it because there's supposed to be a lot of growth going on here. and they're
You know,
expecting to make
I
a lot
hear
of money
every
off of it.
single area in the United States say that now. Everybody says we're expecting exponential growth. I feel just everybody says that. They say that where I am. They say that every person I ever talk to in any part of the United States says that they're expecting some exponential growth in the next 10 years.
Well, I didn't say exponential. I just expect them to have a lot. That's what they were talking about. Anyway, because they're literally building, giant housing developments all over here. And like, there's a
I wouldn't
right
trust
down the
those
road.
housing developments. I mean, those like shitty luxury apartments they're building everywhere. They're slapping shit together just so private equity can own it, just so that they can jack up the price, not rent it, maintain the house value completely artificially, and then just own it so they can have something on the books that's not cash and hopefully pay less taxes and keep the money in a hard resource that will not be worth what they expect it to when they sell it. But, the people who are actually in charge of these hedge funds don't really care. No, they're throwing up housing everywhere. Fucking everywhere. The cheap, crappy housing made of these shitty luxury homes and apartment complexes held together with spit and prayer. Like, they're shitty places.
Well, actually, it's kind of hard to even get a rental property around here.
Despite the fact that they're building. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. You can't rent anything despite the fact that they're building constantly because they're just meant to be held by private equity.
Dude, you don't get it, man. No, they're actually moving into these things before they get done.
Wait, what? Really? Wait, who's moving into them?
People, they're literally renting
like
them
what
out
kind of like
before they get
locals,
finished.
like immigrants, like who are they doing? Who's moving in? Demographics?
No, mostly it's for people from other states coming here.
Coming to the Carolinas? Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, literally, they were building a house development, and the siding wasn't even on the house yet, and there was people moving furniture into the house and living in there.
Jesus.
And they're literally moving in that fast. We can't build enough houses to house all these people.
Interesting.
A place down the road from me, it's like 0.18 of an acre, and it's selling for $99,000. Good Lord.
Jesus.
And I wouldn't give them 99 cents for the whole place.
Oh, good luck to them. I think I've seen a couple of stories about that. Nothing like official, but I've seen a couple stories from people who bought houses in rural areas, and they apparently they're just, like I said, slapped together, held together with prayer and duct tape.
Oh, mine's not really a rural area.
What general area? I'm trying not to dox you here, but like, what kind of like general area? Or you can send it to me in text on Discord. I'm just really curious.
Well, you know where the Masters is?
No.
The golf tournament?
I do not.
Okay.
Sorry, not
over
in
in
golf.
Augusta, Georgia, which is where the Masters is. We're close to them.
Oh, okay.
So, like, our schools all get out for the Masters. Yeah, we all get out for the golf tournament.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But, like I said, there was a church that sold down the road that they're going to put in a business in there, and it sold for $1.2 million.
What are they putting a business in a church for?
Well, they're tearing the church down.
Oh, that's a shame.
And the church has been there since the 60s to put in some businesses, but they bought it for $1.2 million.
Great. Put in another one of those stupid fucking Temu towers. Great. Construction is just shit these days. Just terrible. Contractors are shit, trying to cut pennies everywhere. The labor's all foreign, doesn't give a shit. They're getting paid pennies. They don't care. I don't blame them. I don't blame the immigrants not wanting to put any work into these fucking houses. I know that it's just like no one gives a shit. It's all backed with state tax dollars, ridiculous incentives, incredible tax breaks. It's just like just a builder's market. That comes with some good and some bad. I mean, if you're an in-demand region and people are still willing to live there, assuming you're not going to end up with families on the street during the middle of winter, which I guess in the Carolinas isn't really an issue. If you're that far south, you're probably not worried about winter, but I don't know, still.
Well, we don't have to worry about snow as bad like y'all do.
Yeah.
But when it hits here,
hurricanes,
it's not really snow. It's ice when it hits here. It's not snow. Like, when y'all get it, it's normally snow, which you can drive in. Ice, you can't drive in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you
There's
can.
no driving in ice.
You ain't a Midwesterner. Ice happens.
Ain't no driving in ice, man.
I don't know. Oh yeah, we have a Canadian here with us. I'm sure he's got plenty of experience on ice. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Because once it starts hailing outside, it's pretty much game over. But now we got to worry about tornadoes mostly here, not hurricanes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And F1 hit, a little bit. Like I said, it's not it's not my particular area. It's like in the next town over. One hit over there and took the entire power grid out.
Jesus.
Yesterday. And it hit the fire station, so the fire trucks couldn't even get out because the doors were blocked by trees falling on it.
I don't know. I'm
emergency services was all blocked off.
I don't know. I'm worried about all this building. Like I said, if it's actually going to people, great, and they're getting their money's worth. I don't know. Just a lot of stuff that's just being held by private equity these days, or these ridiculous luxury apartments that are inevitably going to become slums. That they're getting built using ridiculous tax breaks for as cheap as possible. I don't know.
Yeah, well, our state doesn't really do that for most people. It's like, don't get me wrong.
I don't know. They're letting people move in before they've got siding on their house. I mean, that's not exactly the most ethical thing in the world.
Tax breaks.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But the Carolinas don't do corporate tax breaks. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
For when you build and stuff, like houses, they ain't giving you no tax breaks, man. They don't care.
All right.
They give tax breaks to other things, like churches.
Yeah.
We got more churches here than you can shake a stick at.
I always have kind of mixed feelings on the tax breaks for churches thing. Churches not paying taxes. I don't know. I feel like the Copelands and their several mega mansions they have scattered across the United States could probably pay a few taxes. I don't know. But
we got a church that actually takes up an entire city block. It's like, literally.
I feel like they could pay taxes. I feel like they should pay taxes.
Why do you got a 3-story church takes up an entire city block? And the only thing on that entire block that they don't own is the National Guard Armory. Because they couldn't buy the National Guard Armory out. They tried.
Oh, America and our churches.
Oh, man, there's just so many churches here. It's not even funny.
Oof. I know up in Chicago, they're purposely trying to get rid of all the churches so they can, they're turning them into migrant shelters, which never made any fucking sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
that's just a shame. I mean, honestly, tearing them down for businesses is pretty bad, too. But, I don't know.
Well, the one that they're tearing down the road it's been there since, like I said, I think it was the 60s when it was built. Yeah. Late 60s, early 70s, something like that. Anyway, all the members are finally, pretty much gone from the church.
Dead?
Yeah.
Yep.
But there's churches across the road from it. There's 2 churches across the road from that church. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Kinji, you ready to hop in the server?
They're tearing down one church, but they got 2 more across the road. So.
Well, at least they're saturated.
I've been in the server for a bit. I had to walk out because I needed to reboot.
Okay. I'm going to hop off this stream. I'm going to hop on real fast. Oh, I might grab myself a sandwich, though. Give me 1 sec.